Listen closely, because what you're about to witness will shatter everything you think you know about first impressions. A janitor's fingers are dancing across ivory keys in the most exclusive hotel lobby in Manhattan. The melody that pours out isn't just beautiful, it's absolutely mesmerizing. Classical music fills the air with such raw emotion that millionaires stop mid-conversation, champagne glasses frozen halfway to their lips. But look at this woman's face. Vivian Sterling, heiress to an $800 million hotel empire, stands frozen in complete shock. Her perfectly manicured hand covers her mouth as tears begin to well up in her eyes. This is the same woman who, just minutes earlier, was laughing cruelly and saying, "A janitor? Playing piano? This should be amusing." How did we get here? Who is this mysterious janitor, and why is his music moving a woman who spent years building walls around her heart? The answer will blow your mind, because this story isn't just about music. It's about two broken souls whose paths crossed in the most unexpected way possible. But let me take you back to where this incredible journey really begins. Meet Vivian Sterling, 28 years old, and drop-dead gorgeous in that untouchable way that screams old money. She walks through the marble halls of the Sterling Grand Hotel like she owns the place. Which, of course, she does. Every designer dress, every piece of jewelry, every cold glance she throws at staff members is carefully calculated armor against a world she's convinced only wants her for her money. You see, Vivian wasn't always this way. Her parents, the warmest, most generous people you could imagine, died in a car crash on a rainy Tuesday night. They were coming home from a charity dinner, probably discussing which music scholarship to fund next, when a drunk driver ran a red light. In one horrific moment, Vivian went from being daddy's little girl to an orphan worth hundreds of millions. Her grandmother, a woman whose heart seemed to freeze over decades ago, took her in. But instead of comfort, she got life lessons that were ice cold. "Money reveals character, Vivian," her grandmother would say every single day. "Watch how people treat you when they think you're poor, then watch how they grovel when they discover who you are. Trust no one." For 12 years, Vivian has lived by those words. She's turned the Sterling Grand Hotel into the most exclusive destination in Manhattan, but she's also turned herself into someone her parents wouldn't recognize. Behind that beautiful face and designer clothes lives a woman who's desperately, achingly lonely, but too terrified to let anyone close enough to hurt her. Now, let me introduce you to the man who's about to change everything. His name is Marcus Johnson, and for the past 3 years he's been invisible to almost everyone at the Sterling Grand. He's the night janitor, the one who cleans up after Manhattan's elite have their parties and power meetings. 35 years old, with kind eyes and hands that are rougher than they should be, Marcus moves through the hotel like a ghost. But here's what nobody knows. Marcus sees everything. While he's emptying trash bins and mopping floors, he's watching. He notices when Mrs. Chen from the penthouse is crying in the elevator. He remembers that Mr. Rodriguez likes his coffee with extra cream. He's the one who always makes sure the homeless man outside gets a warm meal, even though it comes out of his own paycheck. Marcus has these small earbuds that he wears while working, and classical music flows into his ears like a lifeline. Chopin, Bach, Rachmaninoff. These composers are his constant companions during those long, lonely nights. The hotel guests assume he's listening to rap or pop music, but they couldn't be more wrong. Marcus lives and breathes classical music in a way that would surprise everyone who's ever looked right through him. You want to know the real tragedy of Marcus Johnson's life? He grew up in foster care, bouncing from house to house like unwanted baggage. Most kids would have given up, but Marcus was different. He taught himself everything: reading, writing, even basic math, because education was his ticket to something better. But it was music that saved his soul. There's something Marcus carries with him everywhere, a worn photograph tucked deep in his wallet. It's of a young girl with a bright smile, and every time Marcus's world gets too heavy, he pulls out that picture. The edges are frayed from years of being handled with trembling fingers, and there's a story behind that photo that will break your heart when you hear it. Here's what makes Marcus extraordinary. Despite everything life has thrown at him, He treats every single person at the Sterling Grand with genuine kindness. It doesn't matter if you're wearing a $1,000 suit or if you're the delivery guy bringing groceries to the kitchen. Marcus sees your humanity first. Your bank account never. But here's the question that's probably burning in your mind right now. If you're loving this story as much as I think you are, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because what happens next is absolutely incredible, and you won't want to miss how this unfolds. And tell me in the comments, have you ever been completely wrong about someone based on their appearance? Because what Vivian Sterling is about to discover about her invisible janitor will change both of their lives forever. The stage is set in the most exclusive hotel in Manhattan. A bitter, lonely heiress who's convinced everyone wants her money, a janitor with secrets that run deeper than anyone could imagine, and a piano that's been sitting silent in that lobby, waiting for the right hands to bring it back to life. What happens when these two worlds collide? Trust me, you're not prepared for what comes next. It's late Friday evening at the Sterling Grand, and the marble lobby is buzzing with Manhattan's elite. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over leather furniture that costs more than most people's cars, and the air is thick with expensive cologne and even more expensive lies. This is where Vivian Sterling holds court every Friday night, surrounded by men who think their bank accounts can buy them a wife. Tonight, she's entertaining 3 potential suitors. And let me tell you, these men are exactly what you'd expect from Manhattan's wealthy bachelor scene. There's Jonathan Whitmore III, heir to a pharmaceutical fortune, who keeps checking his Rolex every 5 minutes like he's got somewhere more important to be. Then there's Richard Blackstone, a hedge fund prince who hasn't stopped talking about his new yacht for the past hour. And finally, there's Alexander Cross, old money real estate, who speaks in that pretentious tone that makes you want to roll your eyes so hard they fall out of your head. All 3 of them are trying desperately to impress Vivian with stories of their latest business conquests, their expensive toys, and their connections to other wealthy families. But here's what's fascinating. Vivian is sitting there with this perfectly polite smile that never reaches her eyes. She's nodding at all the right moments, laughing at jokes that aren't funny, and you can practically see her soul dying a little bit more with each passing minute. Meanwhile, in the shadows of this opulent display, Marcus Johnson is doing what he does every Friday night. He's moving quietly around the lobby's edges, emptying trash bins and wiping down surfaces that are already spotless. His earbuds are in, classical music flowing into his ears, creating a peaceful bubble in the chaos of entitled conversation. But tonight, something's different. Tonight, Marcus keeps glancing toward the grand piano that sits like a sleeping giant in the corner of the lobby. This piano isn't just furniture. It's a masterpiece, a 1925 Steinway Model D concert grand, worth more than most people's houses, with keys that have been touched by some of the world's greatest pianists. But for the past 3 years, it's been nothing more than an expensive decoration, a conversation piece that no one ever actually plays. That's when Vivian Sterling does something that will change everything. She stands up abruptly, her champagne glass still half full, and her voice cuts through the lobby chatter like a blade. "You know what?" she announces, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm absolutely exhausted by this charade." The 3 suitors look confused, probably wondering if they said something wrong. But Vivian isn't done. She walks toward the piano with the kind of dramatic flair that only comes from years of feeling trapped in your own life. "I'm so incredibly tired of men who only love my money," she declares, her voice getting stronger with each word. "Every single one of you would disappear if my bank account was empty tomorrow." You can feel the tension in that lobby shift. Other hotel guests are starting to stare, conversations are dying mid-sentence, and even the staff members are pretending to work while listening to every word. Then Vivian Sterling makes the announcement that will seal both her fate and Marcus's. "I'll tell you what, gentlemen. I'll marry the first man who can play Chopin's Ballade No. 1 perfectly on that piano." She points dramatically at the Steinway, her diamond bracelet catching the chandelier light. "Show me you have a soul that appreciates something beyond stock portfolios and trust funds." Now let me pause here and tell you something about Chopin's Ballade No. 1. This isn't some simple tune you can fake your way through. It's one of the most technically demanding and emotionally complex pieces in the classical piano repertoire. It requires not just technical skill, but deep emotional understanding. It's a piece that separates true musicians from pretenders in about 30 seconds. Marcus, who's been cleaning a marble table just 20 feet away, freezes. His cloth stops moving, his breathing gets shallow, and something flickers across his face that's part recognition and part pain. He knows this piece. He knows it intimately. But the three wealthy suitors? They're looking at each other like deer caught in headlights. Jonathan clears his throat nervously and admits he took piano lessons as a child but quit when he was 12. Richard laughs it off, saying he's more of a guitar guy, whatever that means. Alexander tries to play it cool, claiming he could probably figure it out, but you can see the panic in his eyes. This is where it gets embarrassing, folks. Jonathan volunteers to go first, probably thinking his confidence can carry him through. He sits down at the piano bench, cracks his knuckles like he's about to perform surgery, and then proceeds to hunt and peck out what might charitably be called a melody if you were drunk and tone-deaf. It sounds like a cat walking across the keys, and after about 45 seconds of musical torture, he gives up with a sheepish grin. Richard's attempt is even worse. He approaches the piano like it might bite him, sits down and immediately plays the wrong opening notes. When he realizes his mistake, he starts over, hits the wrong notes again, and then just starts randomly pressing keys hoping something will sound right. The cringe factor is off the charts, and you can see Vivian fighting the urge to laugh out loud. Alexander, bless his heart, actually knows how to read music a little bit. He gets through maybe the first minute of the piece before completely falling apart. His timing is off, his fingering is wrong, and when he reaches the technically difficult section, he just stops mid-phrase and throws his hands up in defeat. And here's the thing that makes this whole scene so perfect. Vivian is absolutely loving this. She's standing there with this satisfied smile, thinking she's just proven her point about the shallow nature of wealthy men. In her mind, she's demonstrated that money can't buy talent, passion, or soul. She's convinced she's safe from having to honor her dramatic proposal because clearly no one in this lobby of millionaires can meet her challenge. But what Vivian doesn't realize, what none of these people realize, is that there's someone in this room who could play that piece so beautifully it would bring tears to their eyes. Someone whose fingers have danced across piano keys with the kind of grace and emotion that turns music into pure magic. And I have to ask, have you ever been in a situation where you had a hidden talent that could change everything, but you were too afraid to reveal it? Let me know in the comments, because Marcus Johnson is about to face the biggest decision of his life. Marcus is standing there, cloth in hand, watching this wealthy woman mock the very thing he loves most in the world. The earbuds in his ears are playing the exact piece she's challenged these men to perform. And his heart is breaking and racing at the same time. He knows he could play it perfectly. He knows he could honor that beautiful music the way it deserves to be honored. But he also knows that the moment he sits down at that piano bench, his invisible life will be over forever. The question is he brave enough to step out of the shadows and show the world who he really is? As Marcus stands there watching these wealthy men butcher one of the most beautiful pieces ever written, something happens inside him that he's been fighting for over 20 years. His hands, still gripping that cleaning cloth, begin to tremble slightly. Not from fear, but from muscle memory so deep it's carved into his very soul. You see, there's something about Marcus Johnson that nobody in that lobby could ever imagine. Picture a 12-year-old boy with calloused fingertips sitting at a battered, upright piano in a community center. The piano was missing 3 keys and was perpetually out of tune, but to Marcus, it might as well have been a Stradivarius. This was back when he lived with the Hendersons, his third foster family, and they were actually decent people who recognized something special in this quiet, intense child. Marcus wasn't just good at piano, he was extraordinary. By age 10, he could play pieces that made grown adults weep. By 11, he was winning every local competition he entered. and at 12 years old, Marcus Johnson took first place at the State Youth Piano Championships, playing Chopin's Ballade No. 1 with such raw emotion that the judges sat in stunned silence for a full minute before they could even announce his victory. The newspaper called him a musical miracle, and for one shining moment, it seemed like Marcus had found his path out of the foster system. Music schools were interested. Teachers were offering scholarships. His future looked brighter than the stage lights he performed under. But then everything changed. The Hendersons had to give him up due to a family emergency, and Marcus was placed with the Crawfords when he was 14. These weren't bad people, but they were practical people who believed in realistic expectations for foster kids. When they saw Marcus spending hours at the piano instead of doing homework or chores, they made a decision that would haunt him forever. One day, Marcus came home from school to find his piano gone. Not just moved, gone. Sold to a neighbor for $300 because the Crawfords needed to teach him about priorities. When Marcus broke down crying, begging to know where his piano was, Mrs. Crawford sat him down and explained that music was unrealistic for someone in his situation. "You need to focus on practical skills," she said, as Marcus felt his heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. That was the day Marcus Johnson buried his gift. He told himself it was easier to pretend it never existed than to live with the constant ache of what he'd lost. For over 20 years, he's carried that wound, and the only way he can bear to stay connected to music is through those earbuds, listening to the pieces he once played with his own hands. But right now, standing in this hotel lobby, listening to Chopin being murdered by amateurs, Marcus can feel every single one of those buried emotions clawing their way to the surface. His hands aren't just shaking, they're remembering. His fingers are unconsciously moving in the patterns he practiced 10,000 times as a child. The music in his earbuds seems to be calling to him, begging him to set it free. That's when Vivian Sterling notices him. She's riding high on her victory over the 3 suitors, feeling vindicated in her cynicism about men and money. She's scanning the lobby with satisfaction when she spots Marcus standing there, still as a statue, staring at the piano with an expression she can't quite read. "Oh, this is perfect," Vivian says, her voice dripping with amusement. "Even the help thinks they have opinions about music." She gestures toward Marcus with her champagne glass, drawing everyone's attention to him. "I suppose you think you could do better than these gentlemen?" Marcus looks up, and for just a moment, his guard drops. You can see 20 years of pain and longing flash across his face before he quickly looks down again. But then he does something that surprises everyone, including himself. In a voice so quiet it's almost a whisper, he says, "Chopin wasn't about technique, it was about emotion." The lobby goes dead silent. You could hear a pin drop on that marble floor. Even the 3 failed suitors stop their embarrassed chuckling to stare at this janitor who just dared to speak about classical music like he actually understood it. Vivian's reaction is swift and brutal. She throws back her head and laughs, a sound that's equal parts amusement and cruelty. "A janitor giving me music lessons? This is absolutely rich." She turns to her audience like she's performing in a theater. 20 years of private music education, and now I'm getting critiqued by someone who empties trash cans for a living. Her wealthy friends join in the laughter, and suddenly, Marcus is surrounded by the sound of mockery. Jonathan chuckles and says something about knowing your place. Richard makes a joke about the help getting ideas above their station. Alexander just shakes his head like he's witnessed something pathetically amusing. But here's where Vivian Sterling makes the biggest mistake of her life. Maybe it's the wine, maybe it's the adrenaline of having an audience, or maybe it's just 20 years of bitterness finally finding a target, but she decides to escalate the situation beyond anyone's wildest imagination. She takes a dramatic step forward, her heels clicking on the marble, and spreads her arms wide like she's addressing a crowd at a rally. "You know what?" she announces, her voice echoing through the lobby. "I'm feeling generous tonight. I'll give anyone in this lobby one chance. Anyone at all. Play that piece perfectly, and I'll honor my word." Then she does something that will haunt her for the rest of her life. She looks directly at Marcus, her eyes glittering with malicious amusement, and says with deliberate, crushing emphasis, "Even the janitor." The lobby erupts in whispers and chuckles. Hotel guests are pulling out their phones, sensing that they're about to witness something either hilariously embarrassing or surprisingly entertaining. The tension in the air is so thick, you could cut it with a knife. Marcus stands there, frozen between two impossible choices. In his mind, he can hear that 12-year-old boy begging Mrs. Crawford not to sell his piano. He can feel the humiliation of being told his dreams were unrealistic. But he can also hear Chopin's Ballade No. 1 playing through his earbuds, and it's singing to him like a siren song, promising redemption, if only he's brave enough to reach for it. His hands are shaking openly now, and he's staring at that Steinway like it's both his salvation and his destruction. 20 years of buried talent is fighting against 20 years of learned helplessness. The scared 14-year-old who lost his piano is battling the grown man who knows he could play that piece so beautifully it would silence every cruel laugh in this room. If you're holding your breath right now, wondering whether Marcus is going to find the courage to walk to that piano, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because what happens next will give you chills. And tell me in the comments, did you ever found a moment where you had to choose between safety and showing the world who you really are? Because Marcus Johnson is standing at the crossroads of his entire life. The lobby is packed now. Word has spread through the hotel that something dramatic is happening downstairs, and guests are streaming in from the elevators and restaurants. There are probably 50 people watching, all waiting to see if this quiet janitor will humiliate himself by attempting something so far beyond his presumed abilities. Vivian is standing there with her arms crossed, that cruel smile still playing on her lips, absolutely certain that she's about to watch this man make a fool of himself. She has no idea that she's just challenged the one person in that room who could not only meet her dare, but exceed it in ways that will leave her speechless. The question hanging in the air, the question that's making Marcus's heart pound so hard he can hear it over the classical music in his ears, is simple. After 20 years of hiding, is he finally ready to let the world see who Marcus Johnson really is? In this moment of absolute silence, with 50 pairs of eyes watching him and cruel laughter still echoing in his ears, Marcus Johnson does something he hasn't done in years. He reaches into his back pocket and pulls out his worn leather wallet. His hands are trembling as he opens it, and there, tucked behind his ID and a few crumpled bills, is that photograph I told you about earlier. But now, for the first time, you're going to know who that smiling young girl really is, and when you do, you'll understand why Marcus is about to make the most important decision of his life. Her name was Sarah. Sarah Johnson. Not by blood, but by choice. She was Marcus's foster sister during his time with the Millers when he was 16, the family that took him in after the Crawfords destroyed his dreams. Sarah was 13, a bright, fierce girl who refused to let the foster system break her spirit. While Marcus had retreated into silence and grief, Sarah still believed in magic. Still believed that broken things could be beautiful again. Sarah was the one who found Marcus crying in the garage one night, 2 years after his piano had been sold. She sat with him in the darkness and listened as he told her about his music, about the competitions he'd won, about the scholarships he'd lost. And when he was done, this 13-year-old girl looked at him with wisdom far beyond her years and said, "Just because they took your piano doesn't mean they took your gift." For the next year and a half, Sarah became Marcus's anchor. She would beg him to play invisible keys on the kitchen table, to hum the melodies that lived in his heart. She'd sneak him into the school music room after hours so he could touch piano keys again, even if only for a few stolen minutes. Sarah believed in Marcus's talent, even when he'd given up on it completely. Then, on a Tuesday morning in March, Sarah didn't wake up. A heart condition no one knew she had took her in her sleep. She was 14 years old, and Marcus found her. The last conversation they'd had was the night before, when she'd grabbed his hand and made him promise something that would haunt him forever. "Promise me you'll never give up your gift, Marcus. Promise me you'll let the world hear your music again." Marcus had looked into her trusting eyes and promised, even though he didn't believe it himself. And now, standing in this hotel lobby with that photograph in his shaking hands, he can hear Sarah's voice as clearly as if she were standing right beside him. Marcus looks down at Sarah's picture one more time, and something fundamental shifts inside him. The scared, broken teenager who lost his piano all those years ago finally steps aside, and the man Sarah always believed he could become takes his place. He carefully tucks the photograph back into his wallet, puts the wallet back in his pocket, and then does something that makes the entire lobby hold its breath. Marcus sets down his cleaning supplies. Not dropped, not thrown, placed with deliberate, quiet dignity on a nearby table. The cloth that's been his constant companion for 3 years, the symbol of his invisible existence in this world of wealth and privilege, is abandoned without a second glance. Then Marcus Johnson begins walking toward the piano, not hurrying, not hesitating, just walking with the kind of calm purpose that comes from finally accepting your destiny. His footsteps echo on the marble floor, and with each step, you can see something awakening in his posture, something that's been sleeping for 20 years. Vivian Sterling is watching this approach with that same cruel smirk on her face. She's probably thinking this is going to be the most entertaining humiliation she's witnessed in years. She leans against a marble pillar, champagne glass in hand, ready to enjoy the show. In her mind, she's about to watch a janitor make a complete fool of himself in front of Manhattan's elite. But there's something in Marcus's walk that should be making her nervous. There's something in the way he's moving toward that piano that suggests this isn't going to go the way she expects. The Marcus who's approaching the Steinway isn't the same man who was emptying trash cans 5 minutes ago. Marcus reaches the piano bench and stops. For a moment that feels like an eternity, he just stands there, looking down at the keys. 88 keys that represent 20 years of buried dreams, 20 years of what if, 20 years of a gift that's been crying to be set free. Then he sits down. The bench height is perfect, as if it's been waiting for him. Marcus places his hands in his lap, closes his eyes, and takes the deepest breath of his adult life. In that breath, you can feel him gathering not just air, but courage, not just oxygen, but the scattered pieces of his broken dreams. When Marcus opens his eyes and places his fingers on the keys, something magical happens. The first notes of Chopin's Ballade No. 1 ring out across the lobby, and they're tentative, almost questioning. His fingers are rusty, uncertain, like a voice that hasn't spoken in years. The timing is slightly off, the touch is hesitant, and for a moment, just a moment, it sounds exactly like what Vivian expected. Amateur, embarrassing, doomed to failure. Vivian actually starts to laugh. It's a soft chuckle at first, the sound of vindication and cruel satisfaction. She's thinking, here we go, here's the humiliation I was waiting for. She probably wants to stop him right now and save him from further embarrassment, but she's enjoying this too much. But then something extraordinary happens. As Marcus's muscle memory begins to awaken, as his fingers remember pathways they traveled 10,000 times as a child, the music begins to transform. The hesitant notes become confident, the uncertain timing becomes precise, and suddenly, impossibly, beautifully, the real Marcus Johnson begins to emerge. The change is so dramatic, so sudden, that Vivian's laughter dies in her throat. Her champagne glass freezes halfway to her lips as she realizes that what she's hearing isn't the fumbling of an amateur, it's the voice of a master finding his way home. Marcus's entire body language shifts as he settles into the music. 20 years of suppressed talent come flooding back like a dam bursting. His hands move across the keys with increasing confidence, and the melody that pours out isn't just technically perfect, it's emotionally devastating. This isn't just someone playing Chopin. This is someone who understands Chopin, who lives and breathes every note. The lobby, which had been buzzing with anticipatory laughter and whispered comments, falls into absolute stunned silence. Conversations stop mid-sentence. Phones that were recording for social media mockery are now capturing something miraculous. The 3 wealthy suitors who failed so miserably just minutes ago are staring in disbelief. But it's not just the technical skill that's leaving everyone speechless. It's the emotion. Marcus is playing with 20 years of pain, 20 years of loss, 20 20 years of dreams deferred. He's playing for Sarah, for the piano that was sold, for every time someone told him his gift was unrealistic. He's playing for every night he's cleaned these marble floors, while beautiful music played through his earbuds, reminding him of what he used to be. If your heart is racing right now, if you can feel the power of this moment even through your screen, you need to hit that subscribe button, because we're about to witness something that will change both of these characters forever. And I need to ask, have you ever had a moment where you rediscovered a part of yourself you thought was gone forever? Let me know in the comments, because what Marcus is experiencing right now is pure resurrection. The music builds and swells, each phrase more beautiful than the last. Marcus's gift isn't just returning, it's evolved, matured, deepened by years of life experience and heartbreak. The Chopin ballade that's flowing from his fingers isn't the performance of a 12-year-old prodigy anymore. It's the voice of a man who's known real loss, real loneliness, real resilience. And as the melody soars through that hotel lobby, carrying with it all of Marcus's buried dreams and Sarah's unwavering faith, something breaks open in Vivian Sterling's carefully constructed heart. She's not laughing anymore. She's not smirking anymore. She's standing there with tears beginning to well up in her eyes, finally understanding that she hasn't just challenged a janitor to play piano. She's awakened a sleeping giant, and there's no going back for either of them. As Marcus moves into the most demanding section of Chopin's Ballade No. 1, his fingers dance across the keys with impossible grace. But it's the raw emotion pouring from every note that's about to shatter Vivian Sterling's world completely. Marcus isn't just playing music, he's telling his story. 20 years of buried pain and hope are finally finding their voice, and the sound is absolutely devastating. Vivian, who moments ago was laughing cruelly, now stands motionless. Her champagne glass slips from her fingers and shatters on the marble floor, but she doesn't notice. Because something impossible is happening, she's beginning to cry. These aren't tears of embarrassment. These are tears being pulled from the deepest part of her soul, the part she's kept locked away since she was 16. In Marcus's music, she recognizes her own buried grief, the loneliness, the ache of losing her parents, the exhaustion of building walls around her heart. He's playing her pain without knowing it. The final notes ring out like a prayer, and then complete silence. For 20 seconds, nobody moves. Then the standing ovation begins, every person in that lobby applauding with genuine awe. But Vivian isn't clapping. She's standing frozen, tears streaming, staring at Marcus in complete bewilderment. Marcus stands from the piano bench, starts to walk away quietly, but Vivian's shaky voice stops him. Wait. Who are you really? For the first time in 3 years, she's really looking at him. Marcus meets her gaze with gentle honesty. I'm someone who knows what it's like to lose everything and have people judge you by appearances. The words hit like a physical blow. Then Marcus drops the bombshell. My full name is Marcus Johnson Sterling. I was a scholarship student at Juilliard 15 years ago, the Sterling Family Foundation for Musical Excellence. Vivian's eyes widen in recognition. Her parents' passion project, funding music education for talented underprivileged kids. The scholarship was cut after my first year, Marcus continues quietly. Funding redirected to more practical programs, I couldn't afford to continue. The pieces fall into place with devastating clarity. Her grandmother, who took over after her parents' death. Her grandmother, who believed music was frivolous and quietly destroyed dreams like Marcus's. Her grandmother, who never told Vivian she was killing the very thing her parents died believing in. I never knew my benefactors' names, Marcus says quietly. I wrote thank you letters I never knew how to send. I was going to dedicate my first concert to them. The cruel irony is staggering. For 3 years, Marcus has cleaned floors owned by the daughter of people who tried to save his career. For 3 years, Vivian has walked past the man her parents' foundation was meant to help. 2 broken people, connected by the same tragedy, carrying pieces of the same story without knowing it. Do you believe in fate? Let me know in the comments, because this cosmic connection is just the beginning. Vivian stares at Marcus with completely new eyes, finally understanding that the janitor she mocked is one of the lost dreams her family was supposed to protect. But this revelation is just the start. Both their lives are about to change forever. The silence stretches between them like 20 years of missed chances, until Vivian Sterling does something she hasn't done since she was 16 years old. She steps forward, her designer armor cracking with each movement, and for the first time in her adult life, she approaches someone with genuine vulnerability. "Marcus," she whispers, and his name sounds different coming from her lips now. Not dismissive, not cruel, but careful, like she's afraid it might break. "I made a promise tonight, but I was completely wrong about my reasons." Her voice is shaking as the truth spills out. "I didn't make that challenge to find love. I made it to push people away, to prove that everyone only wanted my money. I used that piano like a weapon, and I used Chopin like a test designed for failure." The tears are flowing freely now, washing away years of carefully applied makeup and even more carefully constructed walls. "I turned my parents' love of music into something cruel because I was terrified of being hurt again. And I almost destroyed something beautiful because I couldn't see past my own fear." She looks directly into Marcus's eyes, and what comes next takes more courage than she's ever shown in her life. "I'm sorry. I'm so deeply sorry for my cruelty, for my blindness, for mocking the very gift my parents died believing in." Marcus stands there watching this powerful woman humble herself completely, and something extraordinary happens. Instead of anger, instead of the justified resentment he could feel, he chooses grace. "Vivian," he says gently, and his voice carries the wisdom of someone who's known real loss. "Music taught me that broken things can still create the most beautiful sounds. Your parents knew that. Sarah knew that. And maybe it's time we both learned it too." The lobby has emptied around them, but neither notices. They're standing in their own world now, two damaged souls finally seeing each other clearly. "I don't hold you to that promise," Marcus continues, and you can hear Sarah's voice in his words, her belief that broken people can heal. "But I have a question for you. Would you be willing to start over? Not as an heiress and a janitor, not as someone who owes a debt and someone who's owed one, but as two people who understand what it means to lose everything." Vivian nods, unable to speak, but her eyes say everything her voice can't. "Then let's start as friends," Marcus says, extending his hand. "And maybe, if we're very lucky, we can learn to make beautiful music together." 6 months later, the Sterling Grand Hotel lobby has been transformed into something magical. Every evening at 8 o'clock, the Steinway that sat silent for years now fills the space with live music. Marcus Johnson Sterling, his full name restored, his identity reclaimed, is the hotel's new music director. But tonight's concert is different. Tonight, Marcus isn't performing solo. He's sitting at the piano bench with Vivian beside him, patiently teaching her the basics of a simple melody. Her attempts are beautifully awkward, fingers stumbling over keys she's never touched before, but she's laughing, really laughing, for the first time in years. "No, like this," Marcus says, his voice warm with affection, and he covers her hands with his, guiding her fingers to the right positions. The melody that emerges isn't technically perfect, but it's filled with something more valuable than perfection. It's filled with hope. They're dating now, but taking it slow, learning to trust, learning to be vulnerable, learning that love built on mutual understanding of pain can be stronger than love built on fairy tale perfection. Marcus still carries Sarah's photo, but now it sits on the piano next to a new picture, one of him and Vivian together, both of them laughing at something only they understand. The hotel guests who gather for these evening concerts don't know the full story of how their music director and the hotel owner fell in love. They don't know about the cruel challenge, the buried scholarship, or the 20 years of dreams deferred. All they know is that when these two people make music together, something magical happens. If this story has touched your heart, if you believe in second chances and the power of music to heal broken souls, hit that subscribe button, because stories like this remind us that hope is never truly lost. And tell me in the comments, what's something you've given up on that maybe deserves a second chance? Because sometimes the most beautiful chapters of our lives begin when we think the story is over. Marcus finishes guiding Vivian through the simple melody, and as the last notes fade, he looks at her with eyes that have learned to see beauty in brokenness. You know, he says softly, I think Sarah would have loved you. Vivian smiles, understanding the profound gift he's just given her. Inclusion in the memory of the person who meant most to him. I think your parents would have been proud of what we're building here, she replies, gesturing to the lobby filled with people who come not for status or wealth, but for the simple joy of beautiful music. They've both learned that sometimes the most beautiful music comes from the most unexpected places. Sometimes the person you're meant to love is the one you almost overlooked. And sometimes when two broken hearts learn to play in harmony, they create something more beautiful than either could have imagined alone. The camera slowly pans to Sarah's photo on the piano, and beside it, that new picture of Marcus and Vivian. Two orphans who found each other across a divide of class and circumstance, connected by music, loss, and the incredible courage it takes to let someone see your heart after it's been shattered. In the end, Chopin's Ballade No. 1 didn't just bring them together. It taught them that the most beautiful music often comes from the deepest pain, and that sometimes, just sometimes, broken things can be made whole again. Welcome to the mirror stories that give us reflection about ourselves.